At 2:17 inches the morning, the new 911 screen told the ambulance to turn left onto Mercy Ridge Road. There was only one problem. Mercy Ridge Road had not crossed the creek in 12 years. The bridge was gone. The pavement ended in black water. And somewhere beyond that storm, a caller was still waiting for help that would never arrive if the county kept trusting the glowing blue line on the screen. For 6 months, Benton County had been proud of its new emergency dispatch system. It was faster, cleaner, smarter. No more guessing, no more old road cards, no more retired voices saying, "That farm is not where the computer says it is." That last part was aimed at Mabel Hart. At 72, Mabel had spent 41 years sending ambulances down dirt roads. No software company had ever spelled correctly. She knew which mailboxes had no numbers, which bridges washed out first, which farm lanes had 2 names depending on who you asked. But when the county upgraded, they called her knowledge unverified memory. Then the storm came. The screen stayed bright. The route stayed wrong. And Mabel walked into the dispatch center carrying a folded paper map nobody had wanted. What did that old map know that the $1 million system had erased? If stories about forgotten people, old promises, and wisdom replaced too quickly mean something to you, consider subscribing. What happened in Benton County was not just about a failed computer system. It was about the people left at the end of roads nobody bothered to remember. 6 months before the storm, Benton County held a ribbon-cutting ceremony inside the emergency dispatch center. They had never held one for the old radio desk. No one had brought cake when Mabel Hart guided ambulances through freezing rain toward farmhouses with no mailbox. No one had applauded the wall of paper maps that had watched over that room longer than half the county board had been alive. But the morning the new system went live, the room was full. County commissioners stood beneath fluorescent lights. A reporter waited near the door. 2 men from North Star Civic Systems wore Navy jackets. On the front monitor, Benton County glowed in clean green lines, every road smooth, every address neat. Avery Cole stood beside the screen with a wireless microphone. She was 34, sharp-eyed, and polished in a way Mabel had never learned to be. Her blazer had not seen rain. Her shoes had not stepped into ditch mud. Behind her, the North Star logo pulsed like a purchased heartbeat. "Today," Avery said, "Benton County enters a new era of emergency response." People clapped before she finished. Mabel stood near the back, close enough to smell dust from the old map wall. She wore her good gray sweater. Her hands rested on a cardboard box holding 41 years of small, unglamorous knowledge. Road cards, bridge warnings, farm names, old call signs, directions written in voices that were now gone. Turn after the red porch. Do not take the Lower Creek Road after 2 inches of rain. Mercy Ridge Bridge out since flood year. Mabel had written that last one twice. With real-time routing, verified address data, and integrated unit tracking, Avery continued, our dispatchers will no longer depend on memory, guesswork, or outdated paper systems. The word memory landed softly, but Mabel felt it. One commissioner chuckled. About time we stopped sending people around by old barn colors. A few people laughed. A North Star technician added, assuming the barns are still standing. More laughter. Mabel did not look down. She had learned in dispatch that panic spread when the first calm person in the room gave it permission. The green map looked beautiful. That was the trouble with it. Beautiful maps did not show which culverts filled first. They did not show the gravel road locals called Preacher's Cut. They did not show the trailer behind the blue silo where Miss Hanley lived with an oxygen tank and no official house number. Avery turned toward her. And we owe gratitude to those who served before this transition, she said. Especially Mabel Hart. It sounded kind. Almost. Then Avery glanced at the cardboard box. From this point forward, all dispatch decisions will be based on verified system data only. No unofficial notes. No hand-drawn corrections. No personal road memory. We have to protect the county legally as well as operationally. Mabel heard what she was really saying. Thank you for your service. Now, please, stop being useful. Avery handed her a small plaque. 41 years of service. The plaque was light. Lighter than the box. Say something, Mabel, one commissioner called. Tell us you're glad you won't have to remember every cow path in the county anymore. The laughter came again. Mabel looked at the digital map. Then she looked at the paper map still hanging behind it, half covered by the new monitor. Her voice was quiet. A road is not real just because a screen says so. The room went still for half a breath. Then someone laughed awkwardly, and Avery recovered. That is exactly why we verify. But Mabel saw the flicker in her eyes. Not cruelty, embarrassment. Avery believed in the system because the county needed her to believe. Mabel took her box and walked out. Claire was waiting by the door. "Mom," Claire whispered, "you didn't have to do that. I only said one sentence. You know what I mean." Outside, November air smelled of wet leaves and diesel. Claire placed the box in the car carefully, though Mabel could feel her wanting to throw it all away. "You're retired now," Claire said. "That's not a punishment. It's a mercy." Mabel watched the dispatch center shrink in the mirror. "Then come home," Claire said. "Rest. Let them use their computers." Mabel did not answer until they passed the turnoff toward Hollow Bend. Somebody has to remember the roads the county stopped seeing. That evening, after Claire left, Mabel folded the largest map along its old creases. She slid the road cards into shoeboxes, stacked the bridge notes with rubber bands, and placed the county atlas behind the pantry door, where Daniel used to keep spare flashlight batteries. Before she closed it, she touched one pencil mark near Hollow Bend. A small black circle. No address, no number, just a home the new system did not know how to find. Then, Mabel shut the pantry door and listened to the rain grow harder on the roof. Long before Benton County used the word system for emergency work, there was a room behind the sheriff's office with 2 radios, 3 telephones, 1 coffee pot, and a wall map held together by tape. That was where Mabel Hart learned to listen. She was 29 then, with a voice people said could make a frightened man breathe slower. She took the job because Daniel's volunteer fire pay was never steady, Claire was little, and the county needed someone who could type, stay awake, and not panic when strangers screamed into the phone. The first week nearly broke her. Calls did not come in neat, they came jagged. A tractor rollover east of Miller's Pond, a kitchen fire behind the feed store, a woman in labor on a road with 3 names and no sign. The official county map was supposed to help, but Mabel learned quickly that official maps were made by people who drove roads in daylight. Emergencies happened in rain. They happened after dark. They happened when a bridge that looked passable at noon had water over it by supper. Daniel understood that before she did. He was 32, broad-shouldered, patient, and always smelling faintly of smoke and motor oil. He drove for the volunteer fire department, fixed small engines for neighbors, and knew Benton County the way some men knew scripture. He could stand at a field, look at the slope, and tell which road would turn to clay first. "Addresses are good," he told Mabel one night, leaning over the kitchen table while Claire slept in the next room. "But landmarks keep people alive." Then he began teaching her. Not from official files. From people. Mrs. Bell was Ruthie with the red porch. Kessler Lane split into 2 tracks after the cattle guard, but only the right track reached the house in winter. Mercy Ridge Road looked straight on paper, but the creek crossing ate gravel every spring. The trailer behind the blue silo had no number, but Mr. Hanley had an oxygen tank, 2 dogs, and a gate that stuck unless you lifted it first. Mabel wrote everything down. She wrote on index cards, envelopes, church bulletins, and once on the back of Claire's spelling homework because a man had called about chest pain from a lane that did not exist on any county map. She apologized to Claire that night. Claire only shrugged and said the teacher would not care if someone got saved. By the end of her first year, Mabel had built a second county inside the first one. The official county had road numbers. Mabel's county had voices. The official county had clean black lines. Mabel's county had warnings in pencil. Do not send a heavy unit over Pike Bridge after thaw. Ask for Lem, not Mr. Harlan, if caller sounds confused. If the caller says, Old Mill Road, ask which old mill. Daniel teased her for the shoeboxes at first, but he was proud. Sometimes he came home from a call, kissed the top of her head, and said, "Your card got us there." Those were the nights Mabel slept well. Other nights stayed with her. A child who stopped crying before the ambulance arrived. A farmer pinned under a hay wagon while rain hammered the dispatch window. An old widow who could only say, "I see the porch light," until Mabel guessed the house by the sound of the creak through the phone line. That was the part no software company would ever put in a brochure. Dispatch was not only routing, it was holding a person's fear in your hands until help found them. Daniel died on a Thursday in March, 17 years before Benton County bought the North Star system. The storm that night came hard from the west, bending pines and knocking power out from Hollow Bend to Mercy Ridge. Mabel was not on duty. She had traded shifts to take Claire to a doctor in Fairview. By the time she got home, Daniel's pager had already gone off. A chimney fire had spread inside an old farmhouse beyond Kessler Lane. Daniel drove the lead engine because he knew the back road better than anyone. He got the family out. He got 2 younger volunteers out when the porch roof began to sag. Then he went back for the grandfather. That was what people told Mabel later. They told her he was brave. They told her no dispatcher, no map, no warning could have changed the smoke, the wind, or the beam that came down. Mabel accepted their casseroles. She thanked them. She stood at the funeral with Claire's hand locked in hers. But grief is not reasonable. For years, she replayed the night as if the right note, the right road, the right warning might have put Daniel somewhere else. She knew it was not true. Then she felt guilty for knowing and hurting anyway. After the funeral, she found Daniel's marks in the county atlas. Small black circles. Not around roads. Around homes. Some had names beside them. Some had only colors. Blue silo. Green pump. Red porch. Some had no official address at all. At first, Mabel thought they were Daniel's private reminders, places he worried about in storms. So she kept them. She added to them. She checked on them after heavy rain. She told new dispatchers what the circles meant, but lightly, as if they were only helpful notes from an old fire captain. She never asked why Daniel had circled so many homes the county had never properly numbered. Maybe she did not want to know. Maybe she was tired. Maybe, after losing him, she could only carry the promise, not examine it. So the atlas remained on the dispatch wall for years, then in her kitchen, then behind the pantry door. And every time someone called it old paper, Mabel heard Daniel's voice across the table. Landmarks keep people alive. Part 3, the object everyone misunderstands. The county atlas did not look important enough to frighten anyone. That was part of its power. It had a cracked brown cover, corners softened by years of hands, and a spine held together with 2 strips of yellowing tape. Coffee had stained the northeast corner of the first page. A burn mark, no wider than a dime, sat beside the legend from a night Daniel had dropped ash from a cigarette while studying a fire route after supper. To Claire, it looked like clutter. To Avery Cole, it looked like liability. To North Star Civic Systems, it looked like contamination. Unverified annotations. The transition manual called them. Mabel had read that phrase twice when the county mailed her retirement packet. Unverified annotations. As if a porch color written during a drowning rain meant less than a clean digital line entered by someone 3 states away. As if a bridge note made by a man who had pulled families from floodwater was dangerous because it had not been approved by a committee. The atlas was not the only thing Mabel kept. There were road cards in shoeboxes, folded township maps, church directory pages with directions in the margins, and radio logs from storms nobody talked about anymore. But the atlas was the heart of it. Every page had a second life. Official roads were printed in black. Mabel and Daniel had added the county that people actually used. Pencil arrows marked shortcuts. Red X's marked bridges that could not carry a tanker. Blue checks meant a road stayed hard in rain. Tiny porch sketches sat beside homes with no reliable address. A star meant someone inside might need oxygen, insulin, or help getting down steps. And then there were the black circles. Mabel had never explained those to Claire. She told herself it was because Claire would not understand. The truth was colder. Mabel herself did not fully understand them. Some circles were beside places she knew well. Mr. Hanley's trailer behind the blue silo, Ruthie Bell's red porch past Kessler Lane, the old Pike cabin with the hand pump that froze every January. Others were marks she could not place anymore, small dark rings around empty-looking patches of road where no official house number had ever appeared. Daniel had drawn the first ones. Mabel had continued them after he died. Not because anyone ordered her to. Because whenever a caller said, "We are past the old barn," or "The mailbox fell down years ago," or "The road sign says private, but we live here," Mabel heard Daniel's voice. Landmarks keep people alive. The new system had no patience for that kind of truth. A month after the ribbon cutting, a North Star trainer invited the dispatch staff to data hygiene orientation. Mabel was not invited, but Lena Price, the youngest dispatcher, later told her about it in the grocery store parking lot. Lena was 26, nervous in the way good people were nervous when they had not yet learned which rules deserved breaking. They said old local names create confusion, Lena said, loading canned soup into her car. They want everything standardized. Standardized how? Legal road name, verified address, approved access point. If it is not in the database, we are not supposed to use it. Mabel looked across the parking lot toward the low hills beyond town. And if someone lives where the database says no one lives? Lena did not answer. That was the first time Mabel felt the old worry sharpen into something more precise. At home, she opened the atlas on the kitchen table and compared it with the printed transition sheet she had taken from her retirement folder. Most roads matched. Some had new names. A few dead ends had been cleaned up. She expected that. Then she saw Mercy Ridge Road. On the North Star sheet, it ran clean across Hollow Creek, a solid gray line connecting the South Ridge to Kessler Lane. Mabel stared at it for a long time. Mercy Ridge Bridge had not existed since the flood 12 years earlier. Everyone in Hollow Bend knew that. School buses avoided it. Feed trucks avoided it. Even teenagers looking for trouble avoided it, because the pavement ended so suddenly that a careless driver could go nose first into black water before seeing the creek. She called the county office the next morning. A receptionist transferred her to transportation. Transportation transferred her to emergency management. Emergency management gave her a ticket number and said someone from data support would follow up. No one did. 2 weeks later, Mabel called again. This time, Avery answered. "Mabel," she said carefully, "we appreciate your concern, but we cannot keep revising verified data based on unofficial personal records. It is not personal. The bridge is gone. Our GIS layer says the road is active. Then your layer is wrong." There was a pause. "We have a process," Avery said. Mabel almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because she had heard that sentence from people who had never listened to a mother begging an ambulance to hurry. After the call, she spread the atlas open again. Mercy Ridge was not the only problem. A section of Hollow Bend had gone strangely clean on the transition sheet. Roads remained, but homes had vanished. Not all homes, just the inconvenient ones. Houses at the end of private lanes, trailers behind barns, old cabins beyond creek crossings, places that had never fit the county's forms neatly. On Mabel's atlas, they were still there. Red porch, blue silo, green pump, black circle. She touched one mark with her finger and felt, for the first time, that the atlas was no longer just remembering the county. It was contradicting it. 3 mornings after Mabel found the missing homes on the transition sheet, she stopped waiting for the county to call back. She put on her raincoat, placed the atlas in a grocery bag to keep the pages dry, and drove herself to the Benton County Administration Building. It sat across from the courthouse, all brick and glass, with a flag snapping in the wind and a sign near the entrance that said, "Public Safety Modernization Begins with Trust." Mabel stood under that sign for a moment. Then she went inside. The woman at the front desk recognized her, but not warmly. "Mrs. Hart, are you here for benefits?" "No," Mabel said. "I need to speak to emergency management." "Do you have an appointment?" "I have a missing bridge." The woman blinked. Mabel took out a copy of the North Star transition sheet and laid it on the counter. Her finger touched Mercy Ridge Road, where the software still showed a clean crossing over Hollow Creek. "That road ends in water," she said. "If an ambulance follows this in a storm, someone could die." The receptionist lowered her voice. "I can submit a correction request." "I already did." "Then, it is in process." It has been in process for a month. Behind her, 2 county clerks looked up. One smiled the way people smile when they think age has made a person difficult. Mabel felt heat rise in her face, but kept her hands steady. "I am not here to complain," she said. "I am here because this is wrong." That was when Avery Cole came through the side door carrying a tablet and a paper cup of coffee. She stopped when she saw Mabel. For a second, her face showed the same flicker from the retirement ceremony. Not cruelty, embarrassment mixed with impatience. "Mabel," Avery said, "this really is not the place." "It is exactly the place." Avery glanced at the clerks, then at the receptionist. "Let's step into the conference room." The conference room had a long table, 6 rolling chairs, and a framed poster that read, "Data saves lives." Mabel placed the atlas on the table. Avery did not sit. That told Mabel everything. "I know you care about this county," Avery said. "That is why I am here. But we cannot override verified system data based on personal notes. Mabel opened the atlas to Hollow Bend. She had marked Mercy Ridge Bridge with a red X years ago. Beneath it, in Daniel's blocky handwriting, were the words, "Out since Flood, do not cross." "That is not a personal note," Mabel said. "That is a missing bridge." Avery folded her arms. "Our GIS provider confirms the road layer came from county records." "Then county records are wrong. Records have to be corrected through proper channels." "Avery, when a dispatcher has a crying woman on the line, proper channels do not drive the ambulance." For the first time, Avery sat down. Mabel thought she had reached her. Then the door opened. Jonas Rell entered with a smile that did not reach his eyes. He was the county administrator, a narrow man in a charcoal suit, who spoke as if every sentence had already been reviewed by an attorney. "Mrs. Hart," he said. "I heard we were having a concern." "A safety concern," Mabel said. Jonas looked at the atlas but did not touch it. "I respect your years of service. But Benton County has invested heavily in modernization. We cannot allow retired personnel to introduce unofficial documents into active emergency protocol." "Unofficial documents?" Mabel repeated. "Hand, marked maps, personal abbreviations, non-standard labels." He nodded toward the atlas. "They create legal exposure." Mabel looked at Avery, hoping she would object. Avery's eyes dropped to the table. Jonas continued. "You have a pension review coming up next quarter, correct?" The room seemed to shrink. Mabel did not answer. "I only mention it because post-retirement interference can complicate administrative matters. No one wants that." There it was. Not a threat, exactly. Something cleaner. A sentence built to leave no fingerprints. Mabel closed the atlas halfway, then stopped. On the stack of files Jonas had brought in, one folder sat slightly open. She saw a printed sheet inside, headed with North Star's logo. Below it were 3 words. Non-standard address list. Jonas noticed her looking and slid the folder under his hand. Mabel's heartbeat changed. "What is that list?" she asked. "Internal data cleanup." "Who is on it?" "No one is on it. It is address classification." "Homes are not classifications." Jonas smiled again. "Mrs. Hart, this conversation is over." Avery stood then, too quickly. "I will make sure the bridge ticket is reviewed," she said. Jonas turned his head. "It already has been reviewed." Mabel looked at him. "And? It does not meet priority threshold." "A missing bridge does not meet priority threshold?" "Not without a current incident tied to it." For a moment, Mabel could hear nothing but the rain ticking against the conference room window. A current incident, that was how systems like this worked. A danger was not real until someone had already paid for it. She put the atlas back into the grocery bag. Her fingers brushed the black circles through the paper. At the door, Avery spoke softly. "Mabel, please do not bring that map into dispatch again." Mabel turned. "If your system is right," she said, "you have nothing to fear from old paper." No one answered. Outside, the sky hung low over Benton County. Mabel sat in her car with the grocery bag on her lap and watched water run down the windshield in crooked lines. For the first time, Mercy Ridge Bridge did not feel like the problem. It felt like the warning before the problem. And somewhere inside that building, under Jonas Rell's careful hand, was a list of homes the county had decided were too inconvenient to find. The storm reached Benton County just after midnight. At first, it sounded ordinary. Rain against glass. Wind under the eaves. A low warning tone from the weather radio that everyone in the dispatch center had learned to ignore until the third repeat. Then the calls began stacking up faster than the screens could clear them. A tree down on County 14. A transformer sparking near Pike Road. A woman alone on South Miller saying her basement was filling. Inside the dispatch center, the new North Star system glowed brighter than the old room ever had. Every active unit moved across the screen in clean blue icons. Every call opened into a box. Every route appeared with confidence, as if the storm outside were only an inconvenience the software had already solved. Avery Cole stood behind the dispatchers, tablet in hand, her jaw tight. "Stay with system routing unless a road closure is confirmed," she said. Lena Price heard the instruction and nodded, though her stomach had already started to knot. She was working console 2 when the Hollow Bend call came in. The caller was male, older, breathing hard. Static cracked behind his voice. Rain hammered something metal near him, maybe a porch roof, maybe a trailer skirt. "My wife," he said. "She can't get air." "Sir, I need your address." A Pause. Past. Kessler. Past Kessler where? By the blue silo. Old Hanley Place. Please hurry. Lena typed blue silo. Nothing. She typed Hanley. Nothing. She typed the road number the system suggested. A clean result appeared. 1,186 Hollow Bend access. Verified route available. Lena clicked it. The map no more Hollow Creek. For 1 second, the room felt normal. Then Lena remembered the grocery store parking lot. Mercy Ridge Bridge. Mabel's voice came back to her, dry and certain. That road ends in water. Lena turned in her chair. Avery, she said, do we have a closure on Mercy Ridge? Avery looked up from her tablet. System says active. Could be wrong. Confirmed closure? No. Then route it. Unit 4 acknowledged and rolled. The ambulance crew sounded calm. They had driven storms before. The driver, Pike, even joked that North Star had shaved 7 minutes off the old route. Lena watched their blue icon move across the screen, smooth and obedient. South on Benton Pike, left on Mercy Ridge. Rain struck the dispatch windows harder. Somewhere in the building, a backup power unit clicked on and hummed. Lena kept her headset pressed to one ear and the caller in the other. Sir, stay with me. Is your wife sitting up? She's trying. Does she have oxygen? Tank's empty. We called last month to get our address fixed. They said, static swallowed the rest. Lena leaned closer. They said what? The line popped, then returned. They said we weren't in the system. Lena stopped typing. Across the room, Unit 4's radio broke open. Dispatch, this is Unit 4. Confirm route across Mercy Ridge? Avery stepped forward. Unit 4. System shows clear crossing. There was a pause long enough for everyone to hear the rain. Then Pike came back, his voice different. Negative. There is no bridge. Every head in the room turned toward the main screen. The blue icon sat at the end of Mercy Ridge Road. On the screen, a gray line continued over Hollow Creek. In the real world, Pike was staring at black water. Repeat, Avery said. Bridge is gone. Road drops straight into the creek. If we had been going any faster, we'd be in it. No one spoke. For half a breath, the entire dispatch center seemed to shrink around the glowing map. The system still showed a crossing. The route still pulsed blue. The estimated arrival time adjusted politely, as if the ambulance had merely paused at a stop sign. Lena looked at Avery. Avery's face had gone pale. Find alternate, Avery said. Lena clicked reroute. The system spun. Then it offered the same road again. She clicked avoid road. The screen froze for 3 seconds, then drew a longer route north through County 9. Estimated delay, 28 minutes. The caller wheezed through Lena's headset. She's getting worse. Lena turned toward the old map wall, but the wall was gone now, replaced by a monitor and a framed county modernization certificate. There were no road cards, no red X's, no porch colors, no handwritten warnings from people who had actually driven those roads in the rain. Only North Star. And North Star had just sent an ambulance to a dead bridge. Lena heard Jonas Rell's voice in her memory from training week. No unofficial routing, no retired personnel, no unverified local knowledge during active response. Then she heard Mabel Hart at the grocery store. And if someone lives where the database says no one lives? Lena made her choice before she fully understood she had made it. She pulled her personal phone from under the console and found the number Mabel had given her months earlier, in case the system ever got stubborn. Avery saw the movement. Lena, she said, what are you doing? Lena did not look away from the caller's blinking line. Trying to find the house. That is not protocol. No, Lena said, pressing call, but neither is driving into a creek. The phone rang 4 times. On the 5th, a tired voice answered. Mabel Hart. Lena swallowed. Mrs. Hart, this is Lena Price at dispatch. We have an ambulance stuck at Mercy Ridge. A caller past Kessler. Blue silo. Possible oxygen emergency. North Star can't find the route. For 1 second, all Lena heard was rain through the phone. Then Mabel said, fully awake now, tell them not to back up fast. The shoulder caves on the right. Lena closed her eyes. Mabel knew exactly where they were. And in that moment, the first real crack opened in Benton County's perfect new system. Mabel did not ask for an explanation. She asked for the road. Where is Unit 4 sitting? She said. Lena repeated the location from Pike's radio call. End of Mercy Ridge. Nose pointed toward Hollow Creek. Heavy rain. No turnaround. Mabel saw it in her mind before Lena finished. The drop-off. The soft right shoulder. The old maple stump that looked like solid ground until water loosened the roots underneath. "Tell Pike not to back hard," Mabel said. "Ease left. There's a gravel lip near the mailbox post. If he feels the rear wheels slide, stop and wait for tow." Lena relayed it. Pike's answer came back slower this time. "Copy. I see the post." Avery stood behind Lena, face pale, one hand still gripping her tablet. She did not interrupt now. No one did. For the first time that night, the room listened to a retired woman on a personal phone. Mabel kept speaking. "Do not send them north on County 9 unless you want to lose another half hour. There's a farm cut between Kessler and the old Hanley place. It will not show on your screen. It runs behind a blue silo, then drops to a cattle gate. Gate opens out, not in." Lena looked at the North Star map. Nothing, just blank green space between two official roads. Avery saw it too. "How do you know it is still open?" she asked. "Because Mr. Hanley's nephew uses it to bring oxygen tanks after floods," Mabel said. "And because I called him last spring when the county forgot his culvert again." That sentence did something to the room. It made the caller more than a blinking lie. Avery looked toward the storm-dark windows, then back at the frozen route on the screen. "Bring her in," she said. Lena turned. "What?" "Get her here. Now." A deputy was sent because the rain had grown too hard for Mabel to drive alone. 12 minutes later, the dispatch center door opened, and Mabel Hart stepped inside with her gray hair damp at the edges and the atlas pressed flat beneath her coat. No one joked about old paper. Not that night. Unit 4 was still waiting near Mercy Ridge, engine running, lights flashing against a creek they should never have been sent to. The caller from Hollow Bend was still on the line. His wife's breathing had become thin and uneven. Lena kept him talking, asking him to count, asking him to describe the room, asking anything that kept fear from swallowing the phone. Mabel laid the atlas across the dispatch desk. The paper looked impossibly fragile under the white emergency lights. Tape along the folds, pencil marks softened by years of fingertips. But when she turned to Hollow Bend, the page became sharper than every monitor in the room. "There," she said. Her finger touched Kessler Lane. Unit 4 backs to Miller Spur. Slow. No shoulder past the bend. Then they take Kessler north until the split. Not left. Left goes to the old quarry road and washes out. Right goes past the cattle gate. Lena relayed each instruction. Pike repeated them back. Mabel did not look at the screen. She looked at the paper. "After the gate, tell them to watch for a blue silo on the east side. The driveway is not marked. There used to be a mailbox, but it came down in the ice storm. The house sits behind a stand of cedars. Porch light may not work if the power is out." Avery moved closer. "There is no address here," she said softly. "There is a home," Mabel answered. The room stayed quiet. Unit 4's icon disappeared from the recommended route and drifted into what North Star treated as empty land. For a moment, the system flashed a warning. "Off-network access." Jonas Rell would have hated that phrase. Mabel watched Lena's face. "Tell Pike if he sees the blue silo, he has gone far enough. Do not pass it. The ditch beyond is deeper than it looks." Lena relayed it. Then they waited. In dispatch, waiting was never empty. Waiting had breath in it. Waiting had sirens, static, rain, and the small private prayers people made without moving their lips. The caller whispered, "I hear them." Lena straightened. "Sir, you hear the ambulance?" "I see lights." Pike's voice broke through the radio. "Dispatch, Unit 4 is on scene." No one cheered. The situation was too serious for that. But everyone in the room released something at once. Air, fear, pride, maybe. Lena kept her headset pressed tight as the crew entered the house. The caller's wife was alive. Weak, frightened, fighting for air, but alive. Oxygen was started. Transport would be slow, but possible. Pike requested the same route out and asked Mabel to stay by the radio. He did not ask North Star. He asked Mabel. Avery heard it. So did everyone else. But the real reveal came 5 minutes later, when Lena tried to close the call record. The system would not accept the location. She typed the caller's name. No result. She typed Hanley. No result. She typed the suggested road number, then the farm cut, then the old access label Mabel gave her. Nothing matched. "It will not let me attach the patient address," Lena said. Avery leaned over the console. Use nearest verified structure. That is almost 2 miles away. Then add a note. Lena looked at Mabel. Mabel had gone very still. What name did he give? She asked. Lena checked the call log. Earl Hanley. Wife is June. Mabel turned the atlas slightly. Her finger moved from the blue silo to a small black circle beside the unmarked lane. There it was. Hanley, 02, check after flood. Written years earlier in Daniel's hand, then underlined later in Mabel's. Avery saw the black circle. What is that mark? Mabel did not answer right away. She turned another page, then another. Hollow Bend, Pike Road, South Miller, Mercy Ridge, Lower Cut. More black circles appeared. Some had names. Some had porch colors. Some had medical warnings. Some had no official numbers at all. Lena opened the database search beside the atlas and began checking them one by one. 3 were missing. Then 7. Then 12. Avery stopped telling her to slow down. The storm kept hitting the windows, but inside the room something larger than weather had arrived. Mercy Ridge Bridge had proved the system could be wrong. The black circles proved who paid for it. Mabel looked down at Daniel's handwriting and finally understood the thing she had carried for years without fully opening. The atlas was not just a map of roads. It was a map of people Benton County had learned how to overlook. By 8 inches the morning, the storm had turned Benton County into a county of broken lines. Phone lines. Power lines. Road lines on a glowing map that no longer matched the mud, water, and darkness outside. Unit 4 was moving June Hanley toward the hospital by Mabel's route. Another crew was clearing a fallen pine from County 14. The sheriff's office had 3 deputies out checking low bridges. Every few minutes, a call came in from somewhere North Star could name perfectly, and somewhere else it could not name at all. But the room had changed. No one said it out loud, but every dispatcher felt it. The $1 million system was no longer the highest authority in the room. The old atlas lay open beside Console 2, and people kept glancing at it before they trusted the screen. That was when Jonas Rell arrived. He came in wearing a county raincoat over his suit, his hair damp, his face controlled. Behind him walked a North Star representative named Kevin Sloan, carrying a laptop bag and the expression of a man already preparing his explanation. Avery met them near the door. "Why is she here?" Jonas asked. He did not have to say Mabel's name. "She helped us reach a caller," Avery said. "She is retired personnel. She saved us 28 minutes. Jonas looked past her to the atlas on the desk. "That map needs to be removed from active operations." Lena turned in her chair. "We still have callers the system cannot locate." Kevin Sloan opened his laptop on the side counter. "If there are anomalies," he said, "we need to isolate whether they come from user error, outdated local memory, or a legacy data conflict." Mabel looked at him. June Hanley was not an anomaly. Kevin blinked. "I mean the address." "I know what you meant." The room went quiet again, but this time the quiet had edges. Jonas stepped closer to Avery and lowered his voice just enough to pretend he was not speaking to everyone. "You are the emergency director. If a retired dispatcher gives an instruction that causes harm, that liability sits with this department." Avery's face tightened. "And if we ignore her and someone dies? Then we follow documented protocol." Mabel had heard enough. Protocol sent Pike to a bridge that is not there. Jonas turned on her with a practiced calm. "Mrs. Hart, one incorrect road layer does not justify disrupting county emergency operations." Lena pushed back from her console. "It is not one road." She had been working while they argued. On her screen were 2 windows. North Star's address database and a scanned archive folder from the old dispatch server. One she had found by searching terms from Mabel's atlas. Her finger trembled when she pointed. "I found a batch file from the migration. Hollow Bend, Pike Lower Cut, South Miller Extension. They were flagged before upload." Kevin moved quickly toward her screen. "Do not access migration logs without admin review." Lena did not move. Avery stepped beside her. "What were they flagged as?" Lena swallowed. "Removed for standardization." Mabel felt the words pass through the room like cold water under a door. Jonas said, "That is a technical classification." "For homes?" Lena asked. "For address points that did not meet verification standards." Mabel opened the atlas to Hollow Bend and placed her hand beside the black circles. They met breathing standards. They met needing and ambulance standards. Kevin cleared his throat. "Rural addressing is complicated. If a structure lacks a legally assigned access point, the system cannot treat it as verified. Then the system should say it cannot find them, Avery said. It should not pretend they are not there. Jonas looked at her sharply. That was the first time Mabel saw Avery choose a side, even if she had not yet admitted it to herself. The storm gave them no time to finish the argument. Another call dropped into Lena's queue. South Miller, mail caller, floodwater inside the house, elderly mother unable to walk. North Star found the road but not the structure. The nearest verified point was a church parking lot nearly a mile away. Lena looked at Mabel. Mabel turned the atlas page. Ask him if there is a green pump by the gate. Lena asked. The answer came back through sobbing static. Yes. Mabel nodded once. Black circle. Second lane past the washout. Tell the deputy not to cross the plank bridge. Park at the pump and walk the last 50 yards. Avery repeated the instruction into the command channel herself. Jonas stared at her. Avery. She did not look at him. Dispatching rescue to South Miller Extension, she said. Kevin began typing fast, likely writing his version of events before the night had even ended. Jonas reached for the atlas. Mabel's hand came down on the page before his fingers touched it. No. His eyes hardened. That document may be relevant to an official review. It has been relevant for 40 years. You only want it now because it proves something you do not. A deputy at the door shifted his weight, unsure whether he was guarding the room or witnessing a crime. Jonas withdrew his hand. This county cannot run on porch colors and widow memory. Mabel's voice dropped. No, it runs on people. Porch colors were what we used when the county did not bother to give those people numbers. That sentence landed harder than thunder. Avery looked at the black circles. Lena looked at the migration log. Kevin looked at Jonas and said nothing. For the first time, Jonas Rell seemed less annoyed than afraid. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced down, read the message, and his face changed. What is it? Avery asked. Jonas slipped the phone into his coat. Nothing operational, but Mabel had seen the sender line before he hit it. County Grant's office. The atlas had opened the roads. Now it was opening the money. The Grant's office message did not stay hidden for long. By 3:41, Avery had ordered Kevin Sloan to export the migration log to the county emergency drive. Kevin refused twice, saying North Star policy required corporate review. Avery told him people were being routed through floodwater because of that policy. Then Lena found the attachment. It was buried inside a folder labeled Benton Modernization Final Compliance Packet. Coverage, certification, complete. PDF. Jonas said, that document is not operational. Mabel looked at him. Then why are you shaking? Avery opened the file. The first page carried the county seal, North Star's logo, and Jonas Rell's signature. Beneath it was a sentence that made the room feel colder than the storm outside. Benton County hereby certifies complete emergency address coverage for all occupied residential structures within service boundaries. Lena whispered, that is not true. Kevin rubbed both hands over his face. The software can only process what the county certifies. Jonas snapped, careful, but the paper had already begun speaking. Attached to the certification was a table of address points removed before upload. The language was clean, almost harmless. Duplicate rural access, unverified private lane, incomplete structure record, non-standard landmark location. Beside each phrase was a number, 37. 37 homes had been removed from active emergency coverage before the system ever went live. Mabel sat down, not because she was tired, though she was, because she recognized too many places. Hanley Blue Silo, Bell Red Porch, Pike Cabin Hand Pump, South Miller Extension Green Pump. Names Daniel had circled, names Mabel had repeated into radios, names she had trusted the county to fix. Avery scrolled lower. There were notes from a planning meeting 2 years earlier, when Benton County first applied for the modernization grant. The state required complete and verifiable coverage to release final payment. Homes without legal access points slowed the process. Private lanes required survey review. Old farm names had to become official address points. Someone had written one recommendation: defer non-standard records to post-launch cleanup. Below it, Jonas had approved the upload. The phrase sounded temporary. The effect was permanent. Those homes were not scheduled for cleanup. They were removed from the world the dispatchers could see. Mabel stared at the screen until the letters blurred. I saw the first notice, she said. Avery turned. What notice? Years ago, before North Star, County sent a packet about address standardization. Daniel was already gone. I thought it was paperwork. I thought they were fixing signs. Her hand moved to the atlas. I was tired. I did not go to the meeting. I did not ask what happened to the houses that could not fill out the forms. Lena said softly, Mabel, you could not have known. But Mabel did not accept the comfort. I knew enough to keep the circles, she said. I just did not know enough to fight for them. That was the deepest wound in the room. Not that the system had failed, not even that Jonas had signed a false report. It was that the people most likely to disappear were the people everyone had learned to describe indirectly. The red porch, the blue silo, the trailer past the creek. Useful descriptions in an emergency, yes, but also proof that Benton County had let human beings live for decades without being properly named by the systems meant to protect them. Mabel opened the atlas to Daniel's first black circles. His handwriting sat there, blunt and careful. Check after flood. No number. Elderly. Odois. Vido alone. For years, she had thought Daniel marked those homes because he was a careful fireman. Now she understood more. Daniel had not been making private reminders. He had been building a list of people the county kept failing to count. Avery printed the removed address table. Page after page slid from the machine. Lena placed each page beside Mabel's atlas. The digital omissions matched the black circles almost perfectly. 37 homes, 48 residents, 6 known medical flags, 3 washed-out access points, 2 families with children, 1 elderly couple waiting that very hour for an ambulance because the new system did not know they existed. Jonas reached for his phone. Avery stopped him. No more private calls. I am still county administrator, and I am emergency director during an active incident. Their eyes locked. For the first time that night, Jonas looked at Avery as if she had become dangerous. Mabel rose slowly. What were you going to do after launch? She asked him. Jonas's jaw worked once. Clean the records. When? When funding allowed. When nobody noticed? He said nothing. That silence answered more than denial could have. Mabel looked down at Daniel's circles and felt grief change shape. For 17 years, she had thought she carried his memory. But Daniel had left her something heavier than memory. He had left her unfinished work, and now finishing it would cost her. If she gave the atlas to the state board, county attorneys would ask why a retired dispatcher had kept unofficial medical and location notes. They would ask whether Daniel had collected information outside procedure. They would make the dead defend themselves, and they would make Mabel look careless for not speaking sooner. Jonas knew it too. His voice softened. Mrs. Hart, we can correct this quietly, tonight. No public blame, no pension complications, no questions about your husband's records. There it was. Safety in exchange for silence. Mabel looked at the atlas, then at the screen, then at Lena, who was young enough to inherit either the lie or the lesson. No, Mabel said. The word was small. It did not shake. These people were made invisible on paper. They will not be fixed in secret. Outside, the storm kept tearing at Benton County. Inside, the old atlas and the new database finally told the same truth. The county had not lost 37 homes. It had chosen not to see them. By dawn, the storm had not ended, but the secret had. It no longer belonged to Jonas Rell's folders, North Star's migration logs, or the quiet shelf behind Mabel Hart's pantry door. It sat on the dispatch desk beneath bright emergency lights. 37 missing homes in a printed county table, matched almost perfectly to 37 black circles in an old atlas. For a little while, no one knew what to say. Then the phones rang again. That was what emergencies did. They did not pause for shame. Avery Cole wiped both hands down the front of her blazer and stepped back to the command station. Her face still looked pale, but something in her had steadied. Lena, she said, start a temporary manual address board. Every black circle gets a call tag. Every call tag gets a landmark, access warning, and medical note if Mabel has one. Jonas said, Avery, you do not have authority to create unofficial emergency records. She turned on him. I have authority to get ambulances to people who are alive. Kevin Sloan looked down at his laptop. No one from North Star spoke after that. Mabel watched Avery make the first hard choice of her career. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was a young woman choosing the caller over the report that had made her department look modern. Avery opened a secure email to the State Emergency Board. She attached the compliance packet, the migration log, the removed address table, and a photo Lena took of the atlas beside the printed list. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard only once. Then she typed, "Immediate review requested. Active emergency coverage. Discrepancy. Possible false certification." Jonas moved toward her. "Do not send that." Avery clicked send. The room seemed to exhale. Jonas stared at the screen, as if he could pull the message back by will alone. "You have no idea what you just did," he said. Avery's voice shook, but she did not lower it. "I think I finally do." Mabel looked away first. Not because Avery's apology had been spoken, it had not, but because Mabel understood something about real apology. The first honest one rarely came as words. It came as a cost. Avery had just paid one. Claire arrived at the dispatch center at 5:12, wearing a coat over pajamas and fear all over her face. Lena had called her after the worst of the immediate calls cleared, saying only, "Your mother is safe, but you should come." Claire entered ready to be angry. Then she saw the atlas. Not folded in the pantry. Not cluttering the kitchen. Not proof that her mother could not retire. It lay at the center of the room, surrounded by dispatchers, deputies, printed logs, and names of people who had almost disappeared from emergency care. Mabel stood beside it, smaller than Claire remembered, and stronger than Claire had allowed herself to see. "Mum," Claire said. Mabel turned. "I am all right." Claire looked at the black circles. "These are houses." "Homes," Mabel said. Claire read one softly. "Hanley. 02. Check after flood." Her mouth tightened. "All those years, I thought you were keeping the job." Mabel's eyes softened. "I thought that too sometimes." Claire touched the edge of the page but did not move it. "You were keeping them." That was the closest she came to an apology at first. But it was enough to break something open in Mabel's chest. By mid-morning, word had begun spreading through Hollow Bend. Not through an official county statement. Through scanner chatter. Through Pike's ambulance crew. Through the deputy who had parked at the green pump and walked 50 yards through rain because Mabel told him not to trust the plank bridge. People began arriving after the roads cleared. First came Earl Hanley, still wearing the same coat he had worn when the ambulance took June. He brought a damp envelope full of old utility bills, none with the same address twice. Then Ruthie Bell came with a photograph of her red porch, taken before the paint peeled. She had written directions on the back in blue ink. "Past Kessler. Right at the Cedar Break. Do not use Quarry Road." A man from South Miller brought 3 mailbox numbers that had fallen off in storms over the years. A young mother brought a school bus note showing where her children were picked up, even though her house did not appear in the system. Someone brought an old church directory. Someone else brought a feed delivery receipt. Porch colors, gate names, bridge warnings, family names, hand pumps, leaning barns, all the humble language of people who had learned to exist without official recognition. The dispatch center lobby became a county the county had forgotten. Jonas tried once to restore order. "We will need to verify these submissions through proper administrative channels," he announced. Earl Hanley looked at him from beneath the brim of a soaked cap. "My wife was verified when she stopped breathing." No one laughed. No one needed to. Avery stepped beside Mabel. "These records will be copied, logged, and sent to the state board today," she said. "Temporary emergency tags go live immediately." Jonas looked at her, then at the crowd, then at the atlas. For the first time, he had no clean phrase ready. Mabel did not ask him to apologize. She had lived long enough to know some people used apologies as a place to hide after the damage was done. What she needed was not his regret. What Hollow Bend needed was restoration. Still, as he passed her on his way out of the room, Jonas stopped. Very quietly, almost too quietly for anyone else to hear, he said, "Your husband should have brought this forward." Mabel looked at him. "He did," she said. "Every time he drew a circle, you just did not count it as language." Jonas had no answer. That afternoon, Avery stood before the local reporter who had once photographed Mabel holding a retirement plaque. This time, the plaque was nowhere in sight. The atlas was behind her, open and working. "We failed residents by trusting a clean system more than an honest one," Avery said. "We are correcting that failure publicly." Mabel watched from the side, Claire's hand around hers. The storm had exposed the missing roads, but the people had come to name themselves back onto the map. 4 months after the storm, Benton County's emergency map looked messier than it had on launch day. That was how Mabel Hart knew it had become more honest. The green lines were still there. North Star was still installed. The monitors still glowed above the dispatch consoles, and no one pretended paper could replace radios, ambulances, or a working database. But now, beside every screen, there was a second layer of truth. Temporary emergency tags, porch names, bridge warnings, medical flags. Notes from people who had lived at the end of roads long before software learned to call those roads active, inactive, private, verified, or non-standard. The state investigation remained open. Jonas Rell had been placed on administrative leave pending review. North Star sent audit teams and a public statement that used the word discrepancy 6 times without once saying people. Avery Cole kept a printed copy in her drawer because she never wanted to forget how easily language could wash blood off a decision. 34 of the 37 homes had already been restored to active emergency coverage. 2 required survey work. 1, an abandoned cabin Mabel and Daniel had circled years ago, no longer had anyone living inside, but even that one stayed in the file with a note. Former residents. Check during flood. Avery had written it herself. Mabel did not return to work full-time. People asked her to. The Benton Ledger called her the woman who saved Hollow Bend. The county board, trying to repair itself in public, offered her a temporary advisory position with a stipend and a chair at emergency planning meetings. Mabel turned most of it down. She was 72. Her knees hurt in rain. Her hands cramped if she held a pen too long, and she had learned that no system should depend on one old woman remembering what everyone else had failed to write down. So she made a different bargain. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, she came to the dispatch center for 2 hours. Not as a relic, as a teacher. Lena Price was always there first, notebook open, headset pushed back, ready to ask questions she used to fear asking. 2 younger dispatchers joined her. Sometimes Avery sat in, too. On the wall behind them hung a new county map, printed large enough to see from every console. Mabel's old atlas was not behind glass. It was not mounted in a museum case. It lay in a flat drawer beneath the map wall, inside a protective sleeve, available to every dispatcher on duty. A label Avery had written in black marker sat across the drawer front. Local verification use when screen and caller disagree. Claire helped make the digital backup. That surprised Mabel most. Her daughter came over on Saturday mornings with a scanner, a laptop, and coffee in a travel mug. At first, she handled the old pages like they might accuse her. Then slowly she began asking questions. Who was Ruthie Bell? Why did Dad mark this bridge twice? What does green pump mean? Mabel answered what she could. When she did not know, they drove out together. They found the blue silo, smaller than memory but still standing. They found the red porch, freshly painted because Ruthie's grandson had come home after the storm. They found a lane Mabel had forgotten and a mailbox Claire photographed from 3 angles. One morning, Claire stood beside the car, at the edge of South Miller Extension and said, "I thought keeping the maps meant you could not let Dad go." Mabel looked at the road ahead. For a while maybe it did. And now? Mabel watched wind move through ditch grass. Now it means I finally understood what he left unfinished. The legal case moved slowly. Grants were reviewed. Signatures were questioned. Meetings were reconstructed from minutes that sounded cleaner than the choices behind them. Some people wanted one villain, one punishment, one headline that would close the wound. Mabel knew better. Benton County had not erased people in one dramatic act. It had erased them through delays, forms, assumptions, and the quiet belief that hard-to-map people could be handled later. Later had almost killed June Hanley. That was why the training mattered more to Mabel than the headlines. On the first heavy rain of the next spring, a call came in at 6:43 p.m. A man reported chest pain somewhere beyond Pike Lower Cut. The screen suggested an address on County 11. Lena looked at it. Then she asked, "Sir, what do you see from your porch?" The man said, "A green pump and a crooked cedar." Lena opened the flat drawer and pulled out the atlas. Mabel sat in the back of the room, hands folded around a paper cup of coffee, and said nothing. She did not need to. Lena found the mark. She checked the updated database. She warned the ambulance about the plank bridge before the driver asked. The unit arrived in 9 minutes. Afterward, Lena glanced back. Mabel nodded once. Outside, rain moved across Benton County the way it always had, finding low roads, old ditches, and the places official maps used to miss. Inside, the screens stayed bright. And beside them, the old atlas stayed open. Not because the past was better, because the future was safer when it remembered who lived at the end of the road.